Happy Travel Gary Tuesday! We wanted to take a break from our normal vlogging and... Did you fall on your CPs?
No.
You would? And we wanted to update you guys on how this trip is going so far. So we did our first month, like our first 6 weeks? 5 weeks. And our first 5 weeks were in Portland, and then we're on the last week of our 5 weeks in Chicago.
Yeah, no, I mean, if I had to describe Portland in one word, it would be charm.
So charming.
Yeah, it was cold, it was rainy, but it was still beautiful in its own way. Very integrated between nature and city and suburban sprawl. But everywhere you went, it had its own little charm. Whereas Chicago is just industrial. If I had to describe Chicago in one word, it would be rough.
They're all about like function over like beauty, I guess I would say, over charm. Like that's, to me, I would use the word function. Like the architecture here in Chicago, the architecture in Portland, where the houses were, they were cozy, they were cute, they had character in every different house they had. Same thing with their restaurant, same thing with everything you do there. They're downtown. Everything was just cute, charming, attractive. It was nice to look around and see things, but here everything is very functional. You know, it's lots of brick, it's lots of to keep you warm, and
yeah, it's very rough, and it all serves its purpose. You know, it's a lot of brick buildings, so a lot of it just looks the same block after block. You know, nobody's really added too many like twists or differences.
As we're saying, if you couldn't tell, we are not huge fans of Chicago. We really love Portland. We even thought of moving there. We were actually looking at the pricing of houses and stuff like that until our car got broken into on the last week there, and then Michael's like, nope, we're not living there. I'm hoping it's not that we're getting worn out by traveling, but we're all kind of at our wits' end with the weather. It's so gloomy in both places we've been to, and we're both from Southern California, where we need sun. And so now let's talk about getting around. I haven't felt as comfortable being by myself, walking around and stuff like that. Where with Portland, I was able to kind of go out, explore on my own. I'm hoping we're gonna do that in our next location. It'll be a little safer, but I don't know. We see people walking around, but I guess just not being from here, I don't feel exactly comfortable walking around in Chicago by myself. We were very excited at first about public transportation here, and we were really excited about the buses and the trains and getting around, but I don't know if it's just we're very impatient people or if it's really gotten bad because of COVID, but the trains are so slow, and we have to wait outside in the freezing cold, rain, snow, and it doesn't matter how many layers you put on, you're still cold, and the trains have been so late.
They're doing repairs on like the main lines and things like that too. So
and there's been announcements where they'll be like, trains are delayed because of COVID.
Or whatever, or because they're working on the line. I mean, it's, you know, Portland is much like LA, where you drive everywhere. You know, there's not really public transit. There might be in buses, but I didn't see a train or anything there that you could take.
But also, Portland had zero traffic. I mean, people here drive like maniacs. No one knows how to drive in Chicago. No one knows how to drive in Chicago. No one knows how to drive in Chicago.
People suck at driving. There's no other way. They just suck. And maybe it's because they don't drive often because they're normally taking the train. So maybe just driving is like a weekend thing or an occasional thing when it's too cold, or they just don't want to deal, like they're in a rush. So either everybody's in a car that hasn't driven a car in a while, or they're in a rush because they decided to drive instead of taking the train to get to wherever they're going. I have no idea what it is, but man, do they suck. They stop randomly.
In the middle of the road and just stop.
The roads are all beat up because of the weather, which is, they can't really do much about because they've got to fix it, but it's still, so you got crappy roads, crappy drivers, And then their driving is a lot of one-way areas just scattered throughout the city. So you don't know when you're going to run into one-way streets or not. You have to make giant right and left-hand turns. It's just a kind of crappy all-around driving experience. And if you go downtown, it's not even worth it. It's $50 to park your car for like 2 hours.
$50. Yeah. And then, okay, now we're bashing Chicago. We promise we'll say nice things in a little bit, but one thing we've also noticed is a difference between the people in Portland and the people here in Chicago. I don't know if they put sugar in the water out in Portland. I don't know if everyone's on mushrooms. I don't know what it is, but every single person, and I mean every single person we encountered, were fantastic. They were so sweet, so nice. Customer service there, anywhere we went, from a tiny little smoothie shop to like a 5-star restaurant, like the service was the same. It was so impeccable. Anyone you talk to on the street, people are just so friendly in Portland, where, I mean, people out here aren't rude. It just seems like people don't really take the time for customer service. It's kind of like I said earlier, it's function. It's let's get you in, let's get you out. You may have to wait, but once you deal with your service, it's quick in, quick out.
Yeah.
Portland has a lot of petty crime. Chicago, it's funny, they said this place was dangerous. I haven't felt in danger at all. It's very similar to me as in LA, where you're like, you learn to deal with the homeless, you learn to deal with people that are maybe a little mentally ill on the transit. So nothing like that I've never really felt in danger, have you?
No.
And I've never felt like my property was in danger, where Portland it got broken into. So now let's talk about like
Yeah, Chicago, that roughness is, to me, it's just, Chicago is like its weather. It snows, it rains, it does all of this stuff. It's just very harsh outside. And it kind of reflects in some ways like the people and the experiences of things that you have. When the sun comes out, or if it, something like that, you can have like a nice day. Everybody's out when it's like that, and everybody seems a little bit happier.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just the weather dictates everybody's actions.
Which I don't blame them. I'm acting rough after living here. I'm a little shorter with Michael and stuff like that, so I don't blame them. Well, one thing I've noticed is that like Portland is a great place to live, but Chicago is a great place to visit. There's so much to do here, and we've had so much fun like doing touristy things. I couldn't think off the top of my head a big thing we did in Portland that was like touristy, where I could be like, oh, remember when we did this cool thing? Now, there was a lot of cool things to do, like living there. Like the restaurants were cool, walking down the street was cool. There's a couple of cool bars and stuff like that. But here it's like, nah, you can go to Sears Tower, you can go to the Shedd Aquarium, you can go to the Field Museum, you can go have a hot dog, you can go have a deep dish pizza. You can go get popcorn at Garrett's. There's so many cool things to do here. So I would recommend visit Chicago. Stay here I think if we stayed here for a week or two, we'd be a lot happier right now. But Portland, it felt like home to me. It was more, but it also could be, maybe it's more like California.
Portland is still West Coast, so it's still a West Coast vibe, West
That's what I'm
Coast
saying.
mentality.
Yeah, so maybe that's why we liked it a little more. I'm very curious as to how we're gonna like Boston, which is our next destination. We'll be staying for 5 weeks in Boston. Another thing that I'm getting very antsy during the week. During the week, I stay home. Michael isn't really available to do anything. He has to work, and he's working California hours, so time difference here, he's really gone I don't get access to Michael really all week. And then we do things on the weekend. I'm inside. There's not a lot of windows here. We're in a basement apartment. I'm kind of itching to get outdoors, get some sun. And then when you get to go outside here in Chicago, it's pouring rain. It's snowing. It's kind of a nuisance to do anything, which is why we kind of took the opportunity this weekend to just stay indoors.
Well, yeah,
hunker down.
If you're going somewhere, I mean, you could ostensibly walk to some places, but you would have to walk to places that you want to go to. Otherwise, you're walking to a train station to wait for 30 minutes to get on a train, freezing cold.
More like 15. We've never had to wait 30 minutes.
No, 15 minutes.
15. But we waited 15 minutes.
But you have to transfer stations.
Yeah, which is another 15. Yeah.
Which is another 15. So you're out in the cold for 30 minutes or so. But then, the trains are heated, so you dress to the nines, in terms of to protect yourself. And then you've got to kind of like open it up, and then wherever you're going, it's heated, so it's a constant like cold to hot, cold to hot.
We're just two California people that miss the sun, and we're ready for it. Boston will be by a beach, so it's gonna be cold, but it's a different cold. Here it's like so cold.
It's freezing.
So I'm hoping Boston's not gonna be like that. I've heard Boston in the spring is better. We need this trip to turn around. Not that it's not. It's still. I mean, I feel like I'm complaining about such a wonderful thing. We are still loving our time and loving our trip.
Well,
But
part of the purpose of the whole trip was to experience different places, and we know, like Portland, if we ever had to come down to it, we would happily live in Portland.
Yeah.
We could deal with the rain and all of that, but over here in Chicago,
it's just not worth it.
For those of you that have lived here, Jesus,
You guys are tough people. I think Chicago is for tough people.
Yeah.
I haven't been as impressed with the food scene in Chicago. And we were actually pleasantly surprised by the food scene in Portland. I think it's just our expectations. Like, I expected kind of the opposite. Chicago was going to be bomb food, drinks, everything. And it just wasn't as much. But maybe we just went to the wrong places. I don't know. Oh, one thing I really wanted to mention, which is kudos for Chicago. When we were in Portland, there's Black Lives Matter signs everywhere. Awesome. Same thing with Chicago. Black Lives Matter signs everywhere, and I'm loving that. But when we were in Portland, I don't even think I could use all 5 fingers to count how many black people we saw, or anyone of any ethnicity. It's very white. Very, very, very white. So it's easy to say Black Lives Matter when you don't have anyone black where you live. So the ethnicity was kind of shocking in Portland. Very, very, very white. And then here, they kind of put their words where their mouth is. Is that correct? Because there's so much ethnicity here, and that's been really cool. What I really like is that, there's a Lebanese restaurant next to a place with good tortas, and then you go next door to that, and there's like a Jamaican jerk restaurant, and
then a Greek bakery.
And then a Greek bakery. So that to me is kind of where Chicago shines, is that they it's not really separated. There isn't like, oh, you go here and this is like a Hispanic neighborhood, or this is the white neighborhood. It's all mixed, it's all integrated, and that's been really cool to see, and I've never seen something like that. It is awesome. So when they say Black Lives Matter here, they mean it. They actually mean what they're saying.
Like LA is a melting pot where there's a lot of different ethnicities and everybody from every walks of life coming together and things like that. You're still isolated to your different groups and demographics and things. You have to go out of your way to go into that. You'd have to go to Little Armenia. You'd have to go to, like you said, Koreatown. You'd have to go to these areas to experience it. Where over here, just even catching a train, you can see dozens of different ethnicities and people and cultures, and you walk down the street and there's a dozen different kinds on a single street and through the various neighborhoods and things like that. So that's been interesting and really cool to see.
I really like that. To me, that's been the best part of Chicago. Not forget about the freaking stunning architecture in downtown. Downtown's architecture and the lake, awesome. Literally, those skyscrapers are so cool to look at. The way they integrate the river and the lake with the architecture, I loved the architecture cruise. Yeah. We did an architecture cruise, and it was so informative. It was freezing, but I actually enjoyed, and it was worth sitting through that cold ass weather to learn more about the architecture. And the lake is stunning.
Yeah.
So beautiful, so blue. Very, very pretty to look at, especially with the skyscrapers behind it, the cityscape back there. That was really awesome. And great sports scene. We went to a Blackhawks game. Super fun to go to.
We're going to go to a Cubs game here.
We're going to a Cubs game. We're going to Wrigley Field. We're going to the zoo, the Lincoln Park Zoo, for their adult night coming Thursday. So you never know. Maybe those 2 events will change our mind and we will make a redemption video for Chicago. I don't think that's gonna happen, but anything else you want to say? What about you, Phoebes? You want to tell the audience anything? You just gonna be a meow meow? Thanks for listening to us, bitch.